Imagine the endless plains of South America, Venezuela, the Los Llanos region, a place where the horizon disappears into golden grass, where the sky is so vast it feels like it could swallow you whole. The hot wind rustles the grass and the sun slowly sinks behind the horizon, turning everything a blood-red hue. You are heading home after a long day, tired, thinking of your family, of a warm dinner. And suddenly, you hear it, a strange melody, 7 notes, perfectly arranged, as though someone is whistling a cheerful tune. The sound seems distant, almost dreamy. Could it be a shepherd from the neighboring ranch? Maybe the wind is playing in the grass. You reassure yourself. If the sound is far away, the danger is far away. But that is your fatal mistake. For in the legends of Venezuela and Colombia, there is a rule that turns all logic upside down. If the whistle is heard nearby, you are safe. But if it sounds distant, like an echo from another world, it means the monster is already standing behind you, its breath brushing your neck. They call him El Silbón, the Whistler, a gaunt giant ranging from 3 to 6 meters tall, towering over the trees. He carries an old dirty sack on his back, from which a chilling sound emerges. Click-clack, the sound of bones rattling. In this sack, it's not just stones. There are the bones of his father, whom he killed with his own hands, and the bones of his countless victims who never found peace. It is said that the souls of those whose bones ended up in the sack become part of El Silbón's cursed existence and will never find liberation. Today, we will dive into one of the creepiest legends of Latin America. We will learn why a grandfather cursed his own grandson to eternal torment, why El Silbón hunts drunks and betrayers, and how the story of a ghost is connected to the real murders of the 19th century that shook the Venezuelan plains. Who is El Silbón? If you ask the old-timers of the Venezuelan plains, they will call him the Sea of Bones in human form. Eyewitnesses, and there are hundreds of them, describe him as a gaunt figure, so tall that his head disappears into the treetops. Some say he is a ghost, a bodiless shadow that moves silently, leaving no trace. Others swear they have seen his physical body, bony fingers, skin stretched tight over bones, eyes glowing with a dim yellow light. His height varies depending on the version of the legend. In some stories, he stands at 3 meters, tall enough to peer into a second-floor window. In others, he reaches 6 meters and moves by propping himself on the treetops, collecting dust from their canopies, like a spider crawling across a web. He dresses like a typical llanero, a local shepherd. His wide-brimmed sombrero casts a shadow over his face, hiding his features. His torn peasant shirt and pants are stained with dirt, and something else. Many say the clothing is soaked in blood, but so old it has turned brown, almost black. But the scariest thing, the one that sends chills down your spine, is not his height, nor his clothes. It's what he carries. The sack, an old, filthy sack made of coarse fabric thrown over his shoulder. From it comes the distinctive sound, click-clack, click-clack, the sound of bones knocking together with each step the monster takes. The locals know, in this sack are the bones of his father, the same father he killed and dismembered in a fit of mad rage. But it's not just his father in there. Over centuries of wandering, the sack has filled with the bones of hundreds of other victims. Drunks, womanizers, those who broke sacred commandments. Legends say that El Silbón doesn't just collect bones, he counts them every night, one by one, as if keeping a grim tally of his sins, but unable to stop. There is a terrifying belief, passed down from generation to generation in the Llanos villages. Sometimes, not often, but it happens, El Silbón comes to the homes of the living. He sits on the doorstep, right by the front door, and pours the bones from his sack onto the ground. And he begins to count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Click, clack. Slowly, methodically, for hours. And here's the rule that could save your life. If even one person in the house hears this sound, nothing will happen. El Silbón will gather the bones back up, throw the sack over his shoulder, and walk off into the night. But if everyone is deep asleep, if no one wakes up from the ominous click-clack, at dawn, one of the family members will never open their eyes. Death will come quietly, without warning. This is the omen. This is the verdict. And the whistle, his famous whistle, is not just a sound. It's an acoustic trap created by a curse. Venezuelan folklore researchers explain, El Silbón's whistle works in the opposite way to the natural laws of sound. In the normal world, sound weakens with distance, but the whistler's whistle grows louder the farther away it is, and fades when he's near. Why? Because the curse turned him into the perfect hunter. The victim hears the distant, almost harmless whistle, thinking, the danger is far away, I have time. But in reality, the monster is already a meter behind, its breath stirring the hair on the victim's neck, its bony fingers already reaching out. And when the victim realizes the deception, it's too late. But how does a man become a monster? As they say in Venezuela, every age gives birth to the monsters it needs. El Silbón was not born a monster, he became one. And his story is about a sin so terrible that even death could not redeem him. There are several versions of how the whistler came to be, all united by one thing, patricide. But I will tell you the most common, most detailed version, passed down from mouth to mouth in the Llanos villages. The mid-19th century, Venezuela, somewhere deep in the plains. A family lived there, a father, mother, son, and grandfather, the patriarch of the family. The son was an only child, and this would be his downfall. From childhood, he was incredibly spoiled. Everything he wanted, he got. Any whim was immediately fulfilled. His parents adored him, but this upbringing grew something dark inside the boy. He grew up selfish, cruel, unable to accept rejection, and one day it all came out. That day, the young man, he was about 18 or 20, wanted to try asadura. This traditional dish of the Venezuelan plains, a stew made from deer innards, heart, liver, lungs, a delicacy. But there were few deer that season. The son demanded his father cook it for him. The father, wanting to please, took his rifle and went hunting. He left at dawn, searched all day, roamed the forests and swamps, but luck was against him. The deer had moved north. By evening, he returned home, empty-handed, exhausted, disappointed. He entered the house and said to his son, "Sorry, son, it's been an unlucky day. Tomorrow I'll get up earlier and try again." Any normal person would have understood, but not this young man. The fury that flared in his eyes was insane. How dare he come back empty-handed? How dare he disobey? His father made a promise, and he had to keep it. In a fit of rage, the son grabbed a knife. The father didn't even have time to defend himself. 1 strike, 2, 3. Blood poured onto the dirt floor of the hut. The mother screamed, but it was too late. The father fell, dead. But the worst part came next. The young man, still consumed by rage and madness, carved out his father's innards, heart, liver, lungs, just like they do with a deer. He brought them to his mother, threw them on the table, and ordered, "Cook. I want asadura." The mother, paralyzed with horror, couldn't disobey. With trembling hands, she began to cook. She put the pan on the stove and started frying the meat. But she noticed that the meat was tough, not like deer. It wouldn't cook properly, giving off a strange smell. And then the terrifying truth was revealed. It wasn't deer. It was her husband. Her scream echoed across the land. At that moment, the grandfather, the father of the slain man, burst into the house. Old, but still strong, the patriarch of the family. He saw the blood, saw what remained of his son, saw the grandson standing there with bloodied hands. The grandfather was not inclined to mercy. "You killed the one who gave you life," he snarled. "You desecrated the holiest law. There is no forgiveness for this." The punishment was brutal, fitting the crime. The grandfather ordered the grandson to be bound and tied to a wooden post in the middle of the yard. Then he took a whip, a long bull-hide whip used to drive cattle, and began to lash him. 1, 2, 10, 20 lashes. The young man's back turned into a mess of torn skin and blood. He screamed, begged, but the grandfather didn't stop. When his back was completely shredded, the grandfather ordered for chili peppers, the hottest ones he could find, and aguardiente, the local moonshine, with a strength of around 60 degrees. He prepared the mixture and poured it onto the open wounds of the grandson. The pain was so unbearable that the young man lost consciousness. But the grandfather brought him to his senses and continued the torture. "You will remember this pain forever," the old man shouted. "You will wander these plains until the end of time, carrying the bones of the one you killed. You will never find peace. You will be forever hungry, but never satisfied. You will forever thirst, but the water will turn to poison on your lips." This was not just a curse. This was a sentence. And to finish it off, the grandfather released his hunting dogs on the grandson. Hungry, rabid. The legend even preserved the name of the lead dog, Tureko, a huge dog with a bloodied muzzle. The dogs tore the young man apart. He died in agony, his screams echoing across the plains. But death did not bring release. The grandfather's curse was stronger than death. The young man rose again, not as a human, as something else. Gaunt, tall, with a sack of his father's bones on his back. El Silbón was born, and from that day on, he was doomed to wander the plains of Venezuela and Colombia, carrying his curse. The dog Tureko still chases him, its barking heard at night whenever the whistler approaches his next victim. Now, as the horror of the plains, El Silbón roams the llanos not aimlessly. He has a specific mission. He is the punisher of vices, a ghostly judge who delivers sentences to those who break moral laws. First and foremost, he hunts mujeriegos, womanizers, betrayers, libertines. Men who betray their wives, seduce other women, destroy families. Why them? Perhaps it is an echo of the version of the legend where the tragedy was caused by a woman. Maybe El Silbón seeks revenge on those who repeat the sin that led to his curse. But he harbors a special, almost personal hatred for drunks. Remember how the grandfather poured aguardiente on his open wounds? How the alcohol burned the flesh, seeping into every scratch, every tear in the skin. El Silbón remembers this pain. He will never forget it. And now he makes drunks experience the same thing. The method of killing drunks is truly disgusting. Legends say that when El Silbón catches a drunk, staggering down the road after a party, lying in a ditch, or sleeping under a tree, he doesn't just kill him. He sinks his sharp, needle-like teeth into the victim's navel and sucks out all the alcohol they've consumed. Every drop. From the stomach, from the blood, from the very cells of the body. The victim feels their insides twisting, squeezing, as if someone is wringing them out like a wet rag. The pain is unbearable. The death is slow. And through the same hole in the navel, El Silbón can extract the victim's bones, one by one, methodically, to add to his collection in the sack. But he doesn't always kill. Sometimes he just cripples, beats with a stick, breaks bones, leaves the victim to die in agony so they can realize their sin before death. How can you escape this monster? Weapons are useless here. A machete won't reach him. He's too tall. Gunshots pass right through him, as if through mist. He is a ghost, but a ghost that can kill. However, El Silbón does have weaknesses. 3 things he fears most, and all of them are reminders of his punishment. The first is dogs. The sound of a dog barking sends El Silbón fleeing. Why? Because the dog Tureko still chases him, tearing him apart again and again in the afterlife. The sound of barking causes him to panic. The locals keep dogs not only to protect their cattle, but also as a defense against the whistler. If a dog starts barking at night for no apparent reason, growling at nothing, everyone knows he's near. The second is the whip. The sound of a whip cracking in the air terrifies him to the core. This is the sound of his torment. Some farmers carry whips with them specifically, and if they hear a whistle, they crack the whip in the air again and again. The monster retreats. The third is chili peppers. Some people carry a small pouch of dried chili as a charm. If you throw pepper in El Silbón's face, he will scream in pain and disappear. The burning pepper reminds him of the torture the grandfather inflicted. There is one famous story told in the Venezuelan villages, the story of the farmer Manuel. Manuel was a stubborn man. When his friends warned him not to go to a party in the neighboring village because they had heard a whistle that night, he just laughed. "Superstitions of old women," he said, and rode his horse. The road passed through a desolate part of the plain. The moon was shining brightly. Everything was calm. Manuel was starting to think his friends had exaggerated. And then he heard the whistle. Distant, almost gentle. 7 notes. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si. Far, thought Manuel. That means I'm safe. But the horse knew better. It reared up, neighed in terror, and threw him off. Then it galloped away, disappearing into the night. Manuel fell to the ground, hitting his head. He woke up a few seconds later, lifted his head, and saw it. Right in front of him stood a figure, huge, so tall that Manuel couldn't see its face. It was lost somewhere in the heights, hidden in the shadow of the hat. He only saw the legs, bony, thin, unnaturally long, and the sack, a huge sack from which the click-clack was coming. The creature raised its hand. In it was a stick, a thick branch from a tree, and it began to strike. 1, 2, 10, 20 strikes. Manuel screamed, tried to defend himself, but his hands wouldn't move. He was beaten methodically, emotionlessly, like pounding grain. He lost consciousness. In the morning, his friends found him. He was alive, but barely. His body was covered in bruises and broken bones. 3 ribs were broken. His arm was twisted at an unnatural angle. When he came to and told what had happened, the old people in the village shook their heads. "You're lucky, Manuel," they said. "Most of El Silbón's victims don't leave alive." But where did this image come from? Researchers claim that the legend has a real prototype. In the mid-19th century, around 1850, there lived a man named Joaquin Flores. It is believed that he committed a similar crime in the Llanos region. In those days, such atrocities were rare, and the people of the plains turned this story into a cautionary legend to strengthen morality. Honor your father. The very image of El Silbón is inseparably linked to the history of the region. His hat, his behavior, they are distorted reflections of the lives of the llaneros, the shepherds, who played a key role even in Venezuela's war for independence against Spain. Today, El Silbón is not just a scare story. He's a cultural phenomenon. Since 1974, Venezuela has held a music festival in his honor. Statues have been erected in his name, and horror movies have been made about him. Even political leaders have mentioned him in their speeches, referring to the traditions of the country. But despite pop culture, the fear remains real. If you ask the local youth if they believe in the Whistler, they may laugh. But if you ask seriously, many admit they are afraid to hear that piercing whistle late at night on the outskirts of town. The legend of El Silbón lives on because it helps preserve identity. It reminds us of what lurks in the shadows of the human soul, of the price of greed, the sanctity of family bonds, and the consequences that echo through centuries. So, if one night you hear a whistle, pray that it's very close, because if it's far away, it's already too late. He's here, behind you. His bony fingers are already reaching for you. And the last thing you'll hear won't be a whistle, but the click-clack of bones in his sack, where yours will soon join. Thank you for watching, and remember, he's always somewhere nearby, watching, waiting, whistling his 7-note song of death.